You're listening to Radio Mayapur with the best devotional, meditation, kirtan music, and inspirational podcast. This is Radio Mayapur.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You are in Radio Mayapur, the link to your heart. This is Ganga, your host, and we are here to present to you a wonderful devotee. His name is Tamal Krishna Kripa, and he's a young kid. I know him when he was very, very small. He was 10 years old when he came to Mayapur. He is the son of Jagadish Prabhu, he's my close friend, and Yugala Priti Mata. And they're wonderful devotees, and they're part of our community here in Mayapur. The weather is very beautiful in Mayapur. There's beautiful sunshine. The night is cool. You can sleep, not need a fan. Be careful of the mosquitoes sometimes. But apart from that, it's so wonderful to be in Mayapur. And there was a big festival yesterday. The Nityananda Trayodasi was very beautiful. There was a drama. And there is a lot of people coming to Mayapur. Srila Prabhupada wanted 10,000 devotees to be here. But now, how many we are? About 7,000. So there is more space for 3,000. So hurry up. If you're planning to come to Mayapur, don't come too late because you won't find a place. And yeah, I'm joking. No, it's okay. Everybody's welcome. There is always a place for expanding on the northeast because this side there is two rivers. Unless you build a houseboat and you live on the Ganges on the... So, Tamal Krishna, I give a little bit introduction. Tamal Krishna Kripa Prabhu, was born on 5th July 1999, and he was living for 10 years in Ariel, which is in Israel. And amazingly enough, he got married last month with a beautiful, beautiful princess girl. Her name is... I wrote it down somewhere.
Vrindavan Tulasi.
Oh, Vrindavan Tulasi. It was a very beautiful marriage. I came there. Very colorful, very nice. And also, you went for 11 years in a gurukula here in Mayapur. My son also went there many years before. So he had quite an amazing life. We usually interview people who are older, like 50, 60, 70, Srila Prabhupada disciple. And we ask them questions, okay, how do you become Krishna consciousness? What you were doing before, where you were living. But now it's all different ball game with Tamal because Tamal is born into a family of devotee. And so he came to Mayapur when he was very small. So today we're going to get some nectar and understanding what's going on inside his brain. We're going to scour his brain and we're going to inquire and find out more and more things which can maybe inspire us young people to come also to Mayapur. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Mayapur is a beautiful place.
Yes.
I don't regret even a moment
Absolutely.
being here, even though a few times I did want to leave.
Oh, yeah, it happens sometimes. But tell us a little bit about when you were a kid, you grew in a nice family, Israel, Ariel. I don't know, Ariel sounds like a soap in India. Ariel soap for washing machine or something.
Not just in India.
Everywhere. So where does Ariel look like? I was growing up in Israel. You know, Israel, everybody's with a gun and stuff like that. There's constant... tension. Tell us a little bit about when you were very small. I mean, for whatever you remember.
Yeah. So I was born in Jerusalem, actually, because my grandfather was living there. My grandfather was living there, and he's still living there, okay. My father's father. Nice. And yeah, my parents actually moved to Israel in the early 90s. They were born and brought up in Ukraine. And then after Chernobyl, they migrated to Israel. They wanted to make it to the US, but I think they only made it to Israel. So, yeah.
Better like this, I guess.
Yeah. They moved, then they met. They met in, I think, 92 or 93, maybe even before that. And then they got married, and they met the devotees. They met the devotees briefly before they got married, the devotees. The temple president there forced them to get married. Whoa. When they were really young.
Nice.
In 94, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then my father was working. My mother was living in the ashram. She was doing book distribution. being a Sankirtan devotee. She was 19, 20 years old. They were very enthusiastic, and then they kind of branched off from because there was one community of devotees. They were Hebrew speaking. They were only speaking Hebrew and English, and they were inviting sannyasis and preachers to come and give lectures, initiate, and etc., etc., etc. And the center was in Tel Aviv. And then at one point, I'm not exactly sure the story, but my father and mother, they branched off, and then they started their own, because they were Russian-speaking. And at that point, there were already many, many Russian-speaking people in Israel. There is about 8 million people in Israel, and at least 1 million or even more speak Russian.
That means their origin was Russian.
Yeah.
It means your grandfather, grandmother all speak Russian.
They're all either from Russia or from Ukraine, and they moved.
Right.
They moved there. So they opened up their own center, and then my father was the temple president of that center, and then we're doing preaching. There was a Friday, there was usually a get together at some devotee's house, one of the devotees in the community, and then on Saturday there was a Harinam. We would do on the.
You can do Harinam in Tel Aviv.
Yeah. Tel Aviv is open. There is no restriction.
Cosmopolitan city.
Yeah. Wow. So then we would go out for Harinam for a few hours in the afternoon, and then whoever. We would meet on Harinam, do book distribution. Some devotees or some people would come, and then to our center for the program, which we would have kirtan, sandhyarti, bhajan, lecture, and then prasad for everybody. So that was usually how it was. And I was going to school. School's there 5 days a week. I did first 4 grades in Israel. So
How was the school?
The school was actually. In the beginning, I really liked it. The first 2 years, I was really enjoying it because, I was learning things, and my parents were happy. They were giving me everything I needed. It was a beautiful education, beautiful family, lots of love. I was hanging out with my friends, and they actually moved to Ariel because at that point, between 1990 and 1998, there was a lot of immigrants that moved to Israel, and then Israel was trying to give them a place to stay and give them a car, give them a house, so then they can stay. Yeah, so they don't have to, move out. So then my grandparents and my father, they decided, because it was really cheap at that point, to buy a house in Ariel, and it's actually a place in the West Bank. It's really close to all the Palestinians, and it's a big hill. And there is a road going from Tel Aviv to Ariel. It's a city on a big hill. At that point, it was really, really small. There was only maybe 5,000 people living. Now we came back. We go. My father and mother go every year. I don't go every year to Israel. They go for preaching there. But we came back last year to Ariel. It's a 35,000 city, 35,000 people city now. And it's really big. It's developing. But at that point, there was only maybe like 3, 4 streets there, and they were just putting houses together. And so my parents managed to get a house there, and so we moved there. We were living there. Then in a few years, devotees came. Then devotees had children, and we had a little community, maybe 5 families, 6 families. We're all going to basically the same school. There were only 2 schools there. Yeah, so it was really beautiful. I liked it, but there wasn't much association. I wasn't really into being a devotee, even though my parents, at that point, they were both working. My father was installing ACs, and my mother was working in the university. She was teaching and studying at the same time. My father also had a different business, I think, going at the same time. But yeah.
He's dealing stone and diamonds.
He was making machines for cutting stones.
Right.
Yeah. And exporting them, all over China, Thailand, Russia. That was his conjoined business with my grandfather, his father.
Nice.
Yeah, and then, the school was actually quite nice. The school was nice. The kids were nice, but it was very, I don't know how to say it.
Normal school.
Yeah, just a normal school. Karmi people,
learn geography, maths, this, that.
Yeah, it was interesting in the beginning. Then it was like, okay, whatever. And then, I started when I was already 8, 9. I would go hang out in the street. There were kids in the street, and would hang out and started doing nonsense. You go hang out and we didn't start running after girls. We're too young, but, trying to eat this or smoke that, or, it wasn't very good. And I thought, my parents asked me, and they saw and they noticed. And then my dad, mostly, at that point, he visited India many, many times. They came to India first time in 96.
Mm-hmm.
And they were studying in VIHE in Vrindavan. Then they took a tour. And then my dad was also doing parallel. Maybe every year, every couple of years, he would bring tours to India.
Right, 30 people.
Yeah. He would take them to Mayapur, Jaipur, Delhi, Vrindavan, Mathura, Puri. That was also
1 month tour or 2 month tour?
It was a 1 month tour. Then he would spend some time, just him, in the holy places, usually Kartik or Gurpurnim. So he was doing that, and he already visited Mayapur. And my mom also came. And they came to Gurukula, and they saw the place, I think, in 2004 and 2005. And they were like, no way we're going to put our son here, because they heard so many rumors. And, I was also quite a spoiled child. Because I had 2 grandmas, and one grandmother was living with me. And my parents would always spoil me. And, I was very, very spoiled. So they didn't think I was going to survive a day. And they had some misunderstandings about Gurukula at that point.
Right.
But yeah, when I was like 8 or 9, they started really getting worried that, this association. And I wasn't into doing anything devotional. I would not read. I would not chant. I would go for Harinam and I would play.
That's it.
Then would go to the program, I would play, just eat prasadam. That's all I got. And because they would offer, my dad used to make me chant 1 round with him. He would sit me down, and I was really against it. Because I would go to school, and we had school from, I think, 8 to 3, because we had no homework. So we had all this, we did everything in the school.
In between, you have a break and lunch, snack, or whatever.
Yeah, that was all there. Then after that, I would go for basketball for 1.5 hours, straight from there, usually. Then I would come back home, and I had piano lessons for 4 years.
Nice.
Also for an hour. And then my dad would come, and he would like, no, you have to chant 1 round. And I was always crying and screaming. And I was done with all of that. But he would make me would chant. I remember that. I was really not into that at that point. Yeah, so we'd get into fights and things. But then, and then in the evening I would go play, then come back, eat something, go to sleep.
Do it all over again.
Yeah.
Next day.
So they were really worried. And at one point they told me, I think 6 months before we came to Mayapur, they told me that, we're going to go to India and try it out. And I was like, India?
Big adventure.
I only watched, films or movies about India at that point. And I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. But I was happy because I was leaving school and it was something new. And then, they were like, okay, so we're leaving in September. And we flew from there. And it seemed like it was all together. They were saying like, we'll try it out. But it seemed like it was pretty permanent. And I was pretty worried, actually.
There's no going back?
Yes, something like that. They were like, no, we'll take you back if anything. I was like, I'm not sure. And then my sister was also just 1 year old.
Yeah.
She was just born. And then I was like, okay, anyway, this will be fun. That's what I thought. I was like, okay, I thought India was like a jungle. I don't know. I watched Mowgli before and I thought that was India. I was like, let's see. And so we flew here and it was probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. It was quite interesting. And my parents still tell this story all the time. But we flew from Tel Aviv to Mumbai. It was a straight flight, or maybe through Jordan or something. And then from Mumbai, we flew to Calcutta. And then in Calcutta, it was still, I think, the old airport, 2009. I was already like, okay, this doesn't really look like from the movie. It's not exactly what I expected. And then we came out of the airport, and it was hot. It was hot and humid. We came in September.
Oh.
I was like, oh man, this is bad.
Jungle.
This is bad. And so I was sweating, and then it was dirty, and there were cars and people.
They were only ambassador at the time?
No, we came, I think, in the Tata Sumo, but
okay.
It's probably the latest car at that point. But so I was already like on the edge. And then what was the last straw on the camel's back was when we got to our cars, we walked from the airport, we came out and we walked to the parking. And then over there at the car, while we were putting all our luggage in, there was this old lady. Well, she wasn't actually that old. She was just like a beggar. Yeah. She was a beggar. Yeah. And she was holding a kid. She was black and,
Dirty.
Really dirty. And I was like, wow. And then she came and out of everybody, she came to me. She tapped me on the shoulder and she was like, give me something to eat. And I was like, that's it. I jumped into that sumo car. And the whole way to Mayapur, I was scared. I was terrified. I was crying. I even made a promise. I didn't remember that, but my parents told me, I was like, when I turn 18, I'm going to call my grandmother, because my mother's mother, she still lives in Israel. She's working there. And I said, I'm going to call her. She's going to buy me a ticket. And then that's it. I'm never coming back to this place again. So yeah, the whole 4 hours I was tripping. And my parents were also... I don't know what they were thinking. They were like, okay, where did we bring this kid? And then, yeah, we came to Mayapur. It was also like, okay.
What's going on here?
And within 7 days, I was in Gurukul from arriving to Mayapur. There was no break. My parents were no break. We saw a few places, and then they just put me in Gurukul. I was like, okay.
It's like going to the army or something.
Something like that.
They throw you with a parachute from top of the 30,000 feet.
So they put me in Gurukul, and in the beginning I was like, okay, what is this place? And there's nothing. I was born in a place,
Well, the Gurukul at the time was where? Near the Goshala?
No, it wasn't. It was on a new campus.
Okay.
It was a new campus, but yeah, I was living in a normal, European Western house to coming and,
living in
the pump shower and then, cooking your own food. I couldn't even imagine all of that. And so, yeah, but I don't know. I guess something changed, like at some point, maybe a few weeks later, and I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. I really liked it. There were so many kids. It was, you could play, you did classes, you did service. I don't know. I just got lit immediately with the mood of Gurukul, and I was like, wow, this place, I didn't want to go home. I was begging my parents after 6 months to stay in the ashram, and I was like, please, let me stay. I got the teachers to call my parents to ask them if I can stay in the ashram. I was really obsessed with it. And my parents were really worried. They were like, nah, this guy. My mom was like, this guy's not going to make 2 days in Gurukul. Yeah, so from being a spoiled brat to, Gurukul.
I guess Mayapur has something magic into it. Anybody who comes to Mayapur will feel something heart changing, and there's something magical happen to whoever comes. Of course, the scripture said that just even if you come for 2 days, if you don't do anything, you just walk and sleep in Mayapur. It's like you perform Ashwamedha Yajna. Basically, you accumulate a lot of good vibration and good feeling of devotion. Something happening to your heart. I don't know. It's difficult to explain. Mm-hmm. But everybody who comes to Mayapur, they have some special experience. So, but then you were already speaking English at the time, Tamal.
I was.
A little bit.
Yeah, because in between the piano and basketball, I was also going for English tuitions because they were preparing me the year before. And I was going to this American lady who was teaching me English, but I could understand something.
Not much.
It was really not.
But there was anybody else who spoke your language, or Russian, or from Israel in a Gurukul at the time that you could click into speak to them?
From Israel, I don't think there was anybody actually.
Russian?
Maybe I was probably the first person from Israel in Gurukul. But yeah, because my parents came from Ukraine, the home language was always Russian. So we'd speak Russian at home, Hebrew in school and the kindergarten, and in Israel just in general. And I was learning English. But when I came to Gurukul, there were a few teachers. There was Baldev Mishai. He was there. He was speaking Russian. Then there was Demeshwar. There was a few friends.
So there was a few people that you can relate, or you can speak. You can ask questions.
I could speak with them, yeah. I understood English by that point.
Yeah.
But I picked it up in few months. I could speak.
So tell us also about the training which they give you in the Gurukul, apart from not much, ABCD, or I don't know, geography or history or whatever, lack of it. But what did you actually learn? I mean, being in Gurukul now for 11 years, now that you remember back, what do you actually learn from the beginning to when you graduate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to sum it up, I mean, you learned, I think in a nutshell, if you say it like that, you can elaborate, but to be a good devotee, mm-hmm. I think that's also why I think many people have different misconceptions about Gurukul. I think their idea, as I understand, at least what I got from it, was to be a good devotee. Everything else was secondary, to have a good character and to be a good devotee. So we did learn whatever you mentioned, geography and English and some grammar.
A little bit.
I have to say it was a bit lacking. We could have been better, but it was there. I can communicate and I know math and, all the things you need for the basics of your life. They didn't give a specification, in a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD in something, but I think that bachelor's, master's, and PhD was in devotional service, or in at least trying to understand devotional service.
Right.
And then there I think the most focus was given. And I think that was the best part. And again, depends from which way you look at it. It was either the cup half full or half empty. But at least to me, I think it was essential.
Basically, character building personality. Like you can be self-reliant. You can learn to cook. You can learn to manage yourself, wash your clothes, dealing with practical things in life. And a little bit like they teach you in the army when you're 20 years old. They teach you how to do everything so that doesn't matter where you go, you can survive, kind of.
Yeah. That was the idea of the character.
Right.
But then on top of that, it wasn't just, because the army, I think, teaches the same thing, but there it was embedded with devotion.
Yes.
So that was also really, really good.
The main ingredient, we can say the spice which make it very nice.
Yeah.
And the prasadam was very good.
The prasadam was
Tell
also
us how
very
they
good.
cook the prasadam.
Yeah, we would cook the prasadam. We would cook it ourselves. And from day one, I was like, I saw the kitchen. When we walked into Gurukula, I was like, wow, I want to be there. It was on top of the pyramid. It was high up there. And I was like, wow, these guys are high up.
And the fire they used, tell us.
Yeah. The fire we used to use was cow dung patties. Dry dung. Yeah, dry cow dung, which the villagers used to make. We used to collect it, then use that. I think now they use wood also. But it was essentially, it was developing character and being responsible for yourself and being able to do everything you needed to do. Not being dependent, or as much as possible, independent from other things. So we didn't...
modern technology, no washing machine, no grinder, you have a stone, you have everything which is... In fact, I always think in myself that if there is a terrible war, God forbid there isn't, and there will never be, but Indian people can survive with anything because they know how to take water from the river, hand pump, put two stones together, put some fire, take some pot and cook and survive any situation,
Yeah, we learned.
But you also did learn a lot of shastric things. Tell us about the mantras, tell us about the shastra, who is the supreme personality of God. For example, you had some concept of God before or not?
The concept of God, to me...
When you were a small kid.
To me, was pretty clear.
It was Krishna.
Yeah, there was nothing else. Yeah, we had a 2-story building. It was like and then on the first floor, there was my father's room. And in Israel, you have to have one room in the building or in the apartment, which is a bomb shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
concrete.
Yeah, fully concrete, so the missiles can't go through it.
Yeah.
And that was the room there. And then it was like a living room, which we made into an TD room. It wasn't big altar. It was Krishna, Gaur Nitai, Nitai Gaurachandra, Jagannatha Baladev Subhadra, and then the Parampara, spiritual masters, And I was born with that. So
idea. From day one, your God was not somebody else. It was already Krishna in your heart.
I didn't have to go. I think
no, because in the Jewish, what they think God is, is some in the sky. I don't know what they think it is.
Elohim. You're not supposed to say his name out loud. You just call him God.
Yeah.
He has no form.
He has no form. So it's impersonal realization. I see.
Yeah. So I didn't really have to be convinced. No, it was never a problem like, is Krishna God or someone else God, or there's, because I think, I'm sure it was also the thing that my parents did do all the samskaras for me from the beginning, which also helped a lot. But the fact that they were practicing, they were preaching, they never actually forced me much, except for that one round a day with my father.
Yeah, come on.
Other than that, I can't recall them forcing me.
Because actually sometimes it has a reverse effect. When I met many children who were pushed by their parents, and they had a reverse effect. Actually, they become like nobody like to be forced to do something. Everything is a natural instinct to be close to God if you are inspired, not by force. So, but then tell us about the mantra aspect, the Shastra. What Shastra? You did the Bhakti-Sastri. And what? Bhaktivedanta.
Bhaktivaibhava. We did Bhakti-Sastri and Bhaktivaibhava. Yeah, so.
Was tough?
It was actually pretty tough because pretty Maharaj, now he's Maharaj, before he was Brahmachari. But he was the ashram teacher when I joined. And first I did philosophy. We learned mantras as we went. We started from the basics, Shikshashtakam, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Mangalacharana.
Brahma Samhita.
Yeah, Brahma Samhita. Then we went on to all the mantras for yajna, all the suktas, Purusha, Shri, Bu, Nila, everything that we needed to do a yajna. We learned all of that. Then we learned all the Upanishads, or some of the Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, which is also really big. Yeah, then we learned Bhagavad Gita. We learned some Bhagavatam shlokas. So mantras went as, just as you wake up in the morning, brush your teeth. It was a mantra class every day.
Nice.
So that was there. And in the philosophy, it started with Chaitanya Upanayanam. It was like for little kids. You would tell stories in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I started with that. I think Maharaj was giving a Bhaktivedanta Swami. He was teaching Mahabharata. We would just read and then he would give his commentary on that. Then after that, the next class, which I went to, was just about understanding, that what you mentioned, that understanding that Krishna is God and then he has some energies and just an explanation
Basic.
It was actually a friend of mine. He was a teacher at that point. He was a student, but he was also a senior teacher, Atul.
Atul.
He taught me that. And then after that, the next class of philosophy, which I went to after, I think, 3 or 4 years, was Bhakti-Sastri. They were like, okay, we're getting a group together of Bhakti-Sastri, and I was qualified, and Maharaj was like, yeah, you can come. And I was like, okay, perfect. I was really happy because my parents were studying and they would tell me about it. They were studying from Bhaktivedanta Swami and they were going through a 12-year course. And then the idea was that Priti Maharaj would start the 12-year course for us, for the kids.
Right.
And so the generation which was older than us, 4 or 5 years, Uddhava, Adi, Govinda, they all finished Bhakti-Sastri, but they didn't want to go and do Bhaktivaibhava. So Maharaj started doing the second class, and we started doing Bhakti-Sastri, and it was a 3-year course. It wasn't 4 months like they do in MI or anywhere else. It was 3 years. And there we did, the 4 main books, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, and
Sri Upanishad.
Yeah, Ishopanishad. Then we did, I think, Brahma Samhita at some point. Then we did Madhurya Kadambini. Mm-hmm. Then we did a lot of additional books. There was another one, can't remember the name. Yes. Pretty much really liked it. It was about Harinam Chintamani.
Harinam Chintamani.
Yeah, pretty much was. Yeah, we learned that. That was for 3 years, and then we started doing the Darshan Chakshurs. That was Shastra Chakshurs and then Darshan Chakshurs. We started doing Bhagavatam, and that was really beautiful. And from day one, from Bhakti-Sastri, I don't know. Again, it was some magic, like you said it, that the Dham or the mercy of the devotees or something. I was so inspired to learn. That was, I think, my favorite class because we continued that class after we graduated because we were finishing after 11 years of being gurukula. We still would come back, 4 of us or 3 of us, and then we would come back just to finish that class. And we'd have to write an essay on every chapter of every book. And Bhagavatam was the same. And just from day one, I remember the first class, we read the introduction to Bhagavad Gita and pretty much, okay, you have to write an essay. And I was like, wow, let's go write an essay. And I was inspired, you had to answer all the questions. We got back our essays at one point. It was a huge bundle of essays. And it was really enlivening. I really, really enjoyed studying and I really liked it and all the intricacies and understanding the philosophy and how it's, inwoven in our culture and how, this is important and who is Krishna and defending that and, going against it and then, seeing it from many different perspectives. It was enlivening and I really liked it from day one. And like I said, we did 3 years of Bhakti-Sastri, then we did Bhaktivaibhava 3 years. We finished all the way till 6th canto. And then we already pretty much was like, okay, I'm going to start giving the second generation after us the same class. So.
You mentioned before that a couple of times you wanted to leave or run away or something. Can you tell us what happened? Yeah.
I mean, this was all really good, but in between all the really good, there was some cavities of some moments which were really hard.
Like what? Tell us. That's important for us to understand because, in every, it's all not always roses and flowers. Yes, it's nice, it's beautiful, wonderful, but there is always some glitch or something happen which can make you twist your mind and something. Tell us the story.
There were many stories.
Okay,
a few of them were, before I say the story, maybe I'll explain, in my opinion, how. I looked back and I was actually thinking about it for a while. And I was discussing with also different graduates and teachers and how it all went and how it was going and just trying to analyze it all for myself. Not to have any either bad feelings or, put it all on a pedestal. This is the best, there's nothing. So I wanted something mature, something mature and balanced. And in the beginning, I think it's because of the person that I am or some nature that I have that I'm very goal oriented. I put myself a goal and I just go. I don't care, rain, snow, or whatever. I'm going.
This is something I do it.
It wasn't a question of. It was a question of putting it as a goal, and then after that there was no question. So then I wasn't very interested in developing any friendships with people or friends who were the same age as me. I was only looking to develop friendships with people who were older or kids that were older or the teachers, because I was like, okay, what's the point of all these guys who are the same as me? I'm already like that. I need to go and get something. I need,
something somebody can contribute to your.
Yeah, so I was always looking how to take from someone and then get something and then make myself better and then be this, be that. And I developed really good relationship with the teachers. I was trying to do service. I was doing service. Then, learning from them. I would go cook. I would come on holidays and try to learn how to cook from Pretty March because he was cooking there. And I was really, really enthusiastic because I was just like, okay, well, I have this opportunity. I better take it. And then I think when I was 15 and I was making, there was actually, it's interesting. It was broken into 3 categories. There was like the mainstream, which was, I'll just tell you briefly the system. The system that Maharaj set up and the teachers was so you can be able to manage and be a leader, but mostly a manager. There was a system of a head boy. So there was a boy who was in charge of all the kids.
Pyramidal shape. It's a pyramidal shape.
Yeah.
Like kids teach other kids.
Yeah. So he was, this wasn't in classes. It wasn't like in any education. It was in doing service and other things. So there was a head boy, and then under him there were group leaders, and then the group leaders had a vice group leader, and then there was the group.
1 second, I'll stop you right there. I just want to ask a question because it was not related to age.
No, it wasn't. Nothing was related.
Like usually in the armies, like somebody senior to you because he has been there a long time than you. So he's called the grandfather, just because he's been a few months older. But I saw in your school, in the Gurukula Santander, there's a small kid who is very sharp, who's very smart, who is in charge of another 20 kids who are maybe bigger than him also. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was like that. It was. There were rankings, there were chadars, there was 4 or 5 different chadars which were there. And the chadars did mean something, but it was, the person who came before who knew how to do everything. When I came, I was 10 and there was a 6-year-old teaching me how to do everything. And I was cool with it and he was even more cool with it.
Sure.
But so that was the system. And so that
So it goes by qualification, basically.
Yes.
It was not by ranking by age or...
No.
Or
it was simply qualification.
Good, which is good.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So that's what we call mainstream.
Yes.
And then there was kitchen and then there was goshala.
Yes.
So in the kitchen, you were just doing the kitchen, and in the goshala, you were just doing the goshala. So all the services that were connected, you were doing.
Taking care of the cows and make sure to milk them.
Yeah.
When they get sick, this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Give them food, wash them, whatever.
Yeah. And the
kitchen means taking care of all the spices, make sure they don't get bugged, this, that. Prepare, make sure there is enough pati for cooking, the pot are clean.
Yeah, all those details.
And storing also. You have a big story for the rice with the husk.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, we have that story because there's a lot of land for Gurukul and they grow the rice and then we store it in a husk and then it's supposed to sit for 1 year.
Yes.
Till you can unhusk it and then use that for cooking. So
a lot of practical stuff.
Yeah, that there was a lot of interesting practical things that we learned and that we did. So most people were trying to get to mainstream. I was really interested in the kitchen. I really like cooking.
Because you like to cook?
Yeah.
You like to eat as well?
Yeah, both. Both were really important. Sometimes the cooking more, sometimes the eating more.
Any good cook is a good eater.
Yeah. So then I was trying to make my way there. It was hard. And then as I got to basically the top of the kitchen, I was not the kitchen in charge, but I was under him. And then at that point, I hit a crisis. I was like 15 or 16, and a senior boy, the head boy at that point, he came to me and he started getting on my case. And I didn't do anything wrong. And I was like, what's wrong? It's like,
why are you getting on my case?
Yeah, leave me alone, man. And he was like, you're so puffed up. You're so proud. You're trying to just forget about everybody else. And you're just going and trying to do your own thing there in the kitchen. You're supposed to, the gurukula isn't, to deal with just pots and spoons and vegetables and go, where the storage place. That's easy. The point of gurukula is to learn how to deal with kids and then, develop relationships and do this. And I was like, no, this is really hard. Developing relationships and being with people, they change their mind. The pot doesn't move, man. I put the pot there and it doesn't move. I clean it, I wash it, I leave it, I'm happy. So, and yeah, that conversation made a change because he was getting on my case. But then after a few minutes of talking to him, it started clicking in and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I should think about this. And then, without asking me, he kicked me out because he was the head boy. He had the power to do it. He took me out of the kitchen, and then he just put me in a group. And I was like, man, back to square one.
Going back to zero again.
Yeah, and then he was like, no, you're going to be in mainstream. You're going to learn how to do this. You're going to learn how to be a vice group leader, then, group leader, then vice head boy, and then a head boy. You're going to learn the whole thing because it's good for you. And I was like,
it's hard.
This is really hard. But I didn't really have an option. So I put that as my goal. I was like, okay, kitchen. I learned how to cook at that point. So I was happy. But I still would go. You would have the time to do both, but not as much. And then I started going in there. And it was really hard. I didn't know how to, properly communicate. I was just trying to boss everybody around, but I wasn't the boss there. So it would be very problematic. And so at that point, I think that was the first time, and I was like 15 or 16. I went back to Israel for a few months, and I was like, man, maybe I should just stay. I really like gurukula, but that thought just
that experience kind of burned you out.
Yeah, it burnt me a little.
But maybe because also you didn't know much how to relate with people, maybe at that point of time.
Yeah, I didn't. And it was a good lesson, and I stayed there, and I did make it to the mainstream, and surprisingly enough, in a few years, I was the head boy. But nice. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, at that point, that was probably the first time. And then I think the crux of the crisis happened when I was 17, 18. I was the head boy. And then just a few stories, I guess, since it probably sounds interesting. So, what was nonsense or was considered nonsense between us, at that point, I was already friends. We had a group of friends, was maybe 8 or 9 of us. Some were older, some were younger, but basically the same age, plus minus 2 years. And the biggest nonsense that we could do at that point wasn't breaking any regulative principle, wasn't hanging out with a girl or watching a movie, it was to go out and eat.
That was Maya.
Yeah, that was 100% Maya.
Where you go and eat? Outside in the restaurant?
Anywhere. The 3 rupee samosa was gold.
It was gold, yeah. You're hungry always when you're a kid.
Yeah, because the idea, and that's what was taught to us in the brahmachari, as we're brahmacharis, and in the philosophy class, we're like, you're brahmachari, so you're dependent on the teacher. So when the teacher eats, you eat. And I was like, okay, makes sense. So we breakfast, lunch, no dinner. And sometimes we had some dinner, but you were hungry. But it wasn't even about the fact that you were hungry. It was to go out and get something different or to get something from outside. That was, the juice or the experience.
The forbidden fruits.
Yeah. And so we got in trouble for that a lot. But we did also sneak in a lot of food. And that was you have to go and sneak in. We'd go to Mayapur and buy a burger. And that was really the hit of the day. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, a burger in Mayapur. But yeah, and we got in trouble for that. Actually, quite severely at one point.
You?
Yeah.
How they punish you?
So probably the worst time that we got in trouble was these boys, two friends. They went out and then they had some money from their parents. They had like maybe 100 rupees or something. And they bought 100 rupees worth of 3 rupee samosas.
Whoa, that's a lot.
It's a lot of samosas, like 30 samosas. So they brought them at night. They went in the evening, and we were all in ashram at that point, and I was guarding. So we would guard so that nobody comes to the school, and some of us would wake up boys, and some of us would guard. And I was the head boy at that time. And then, and I was
fist.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know about it. So they came into Gurukul. They bought it. They came into Gurukul. They distributed to everybody. All the boys, there was
But
gangs.
not you.
They did also give to me. I was in the office. I was with another teacher. We're watching something. He had a computer. And I was like, man, this is the time. Everybody's sleeping. And we're watching, I don't know, either UFC or some fight. He liked watching some fights. I was like, instead of guarding, I wasn't guarding, which was also a problem later. But... So they went out and they gave out those samosas to everybody, all the ashram boys, all the big ones, because it was separated. The small kids were sleeping in the office.
Yes.
They were up to 12 years old in the building. Then on the verandas in the same building, they were 12 to 16 years old. And then 16 up, go temple hut, which just meant you had a hut over yourself. There was no doors. There was nothing. It was cold.
Open, yeah.
In the winter, hot in the summer. But we would all sleep there in our mosquito nets. So then they came and they distributed to everybody, woke up everybody, gave them all samosas. And then they came into the office because they knew I was in the office. They saw the light. You could see the light from the temple hut. And so they threw a bag. We had a table, small table with a computer where me and that teacher were watching. And they threw us a bag of samosas. And we're already watching. I wasn't planning to go to sleep because I had my hours of guarding. It was 9 to 11 or something. And then... And so we opened the samosas. We're like, wow, food for the show or something. We ate them, and then, it was great. Said thank you. And then the next morning, I think, so there was one kid who was older. He went, and these guys who went to buy the samosas, they took his bicycle. And they took his bicycle out, and then they hid it. I don't know why they hid it. They just put it in the bushes, and the guy couldn't find his bicycle. And so he went to the teacher, and he was like, someone stole my bicycle. And so the teacher went there, and then he went, and they found the bicycle. And then they went around asking, why did you put the bicycle? And then the guys who went and bought the samosas, for some reason, the chowkidar told on them. He said that, these two went out, and then they came back with samosas. So the teacher was like, what? You had samosas? And so that's it. That's where it started going down. And so they called an assembly. The whole school was there. And then it just started. The teachers were so angry. They were screaming at us. They were like, how come you're going out? How come you're buying these samosas? You're giving them out to everybody. This is not the brahmachari mentality. This is not the gurukula education. You guys are all going to be doing punishment for months. We were like, months? Wow, that's a lot of punishment.
Let's do it some samosa, man.
And then in that assembly, the teachers were like, okay, so who bought the samosas? And so the two kids stood up and they were like, okay, so who did you give it to? Everybody. And then they started naming. And one by one, everybody just stands up. And each time someone stands up, and they started from the younger ones, and then they got to me. I was the head boy, and then I had 2 vice head boys. And we already had the last chatters. We're the most senior people in the school. And so they got to us, and they were like, this. And then the teachers look at us like, with such disappointment. We're like, man, we're going down for this. And then they mentioned that teacher who was also with us, who was in the ashram. And that's where it ended. That's where it ended. The teachers were like, no, you guys are doing punishment for 2 months. You have to clear this compost pile. You have to move these rocks. You have to do this. You have to do that. We're like, all right, at least we're not kicked out. We thought we were going to get kicked out of the school or something. So that was pretty heavy. And I was supposed to also at that point, Pretty Maharaj, he would go to Europe once a year with a group of boys just for preaching. He was invited. And then, and the boys, he would choose a few senior boys. And then he would take them. They had to pay. They had to somehow collect or ask their parents to pay. It was like $1,000 for all the tickets. We traveled to like 8 or 9 countries in Europe, the visas and everything. And so that was like the thing. If you were, I don't know how to say it. If you win the lottery, then you get a ticket there. There was something to do with that. It was like on that level. So, and then that year, and he would say 6 months before, and we're all waiting. And then he called me, he called my friend and another one. Excuse me. He called us and then he was like, okay, so I'm thinking to go to Europe. Would you guys like to join? And we're like, we're so happy. This was before the samosas. We're so happy. We're in bliss. And we're like, yes, of course. He was like, okay, so get this, and that ready. And then we can go collect the money, buy your tickets. And then the samosas happened like a month before that. We already had everything, the tickets. And then because I was the most senior boy in the school and I was supposed to be doing things and we messed up. And so all of that. And then Pretty Maharaj called me. He was like, he had a very serious conversation after we did all the punishment, after everything. He's like, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to go to Europe since, this is the kind of behavior you're setting the standard for the school. And
because you're the leader.
Yeah, you're the leader and everybody's following you. And this is the kind of nonsense that you guys are doing. We also did a few other things before that. We arranged like a birthday party for this kid who was leaving or a leaving party. I don't even remember. And we ordered soya sabji and chow mein and we had it at midnight in the gurukula. And so we did a few things, but that was like that was really the worst that we got. We made burgers for our trip to Calcutta, and there was things like that everybody got so mad at. And at those points, like after you got really in trouble, like I remember when he told me that I don't think you're going to Europe, and I was like, I'm not going to Europe, and so I was just like, I gotta leave. I'm not sure if I can handle this, because I told my parents, they collected money, they asked the devotees to also help, and they already bought the tickets, they did everything, and now, because I messed up, I had to go. And so I was like, can I go and tell my parents? And I was in tears. I was 18 and I was crying. And I was, just like, I don't know what to do. I should probably leave. I should go to Israel, or I should, I have to leave the school. And I was like, that was the breaking point. And somehow, I talked to them. They pacified me. I went back. And I was just mental for a few days. Then a few weeks went by. And it was struggle.
Tough.
It was really tough. And then,
But eventually you went to Europe or not?
Eventually I did go to Europe.
But it was a good lesson.
It was a good lesson.
That was the samosa. You don't eat samosa anymore now.
I actually don't. I don't personally like them, but maybe that has something to do with the samskara. But that was probably the biggest crisis at that point.
Amazing, man. But tell us the happiest moment you had in your Krishna conscious life in the while you were a student in a gurukula. Of course, you did the elephant procession. Which is very nice. Sit on top of the elephant with Krishna.
Yeah, the happiest moments were there were so many. I think starting from, like you said, the elephant procession, I was like 6 years I was on the elephant. I started from all the way in the back to all the way in the front, doing all the things. And that was wonderful, the service. I participated in all the abhisheks every year for maybe 6 years. Right. I learned how to do all of that. We learned how to do yajnas. We learned how to do the puja. We did puja we went to so many programs and festivals. We learned how to sing, play mridangam. That was, it was just really, 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 really beautiful. Every festival, I was so happy, feeling so amazing that I can do some service. And it was, I was just in bliss. And, getting to know all my friends and having that kind of relationship, which was, we would have a whole day together of service and work. And then we would go and just walk around Gurukula in the evening and just talk and, talk about things, talk about life, talk about our plans and, what we could do. And just like so many happy and beautiful moments. And
I think the overshit is bad.
100%. We still are all in contact, maybe 9 of us. We have a group chat on WhatsApp, which we made when everybody started leaving. And we still, sometimes someone mentions something and we start remembering all those days. And everybody mostly remembers the good. The bad sometimes, yes, but the good overs.
It was a much more good than bad.
Much more.
Tell us a little bit about, of course, now you're married, but tell us about the program you do for Jagya, because this is something you do for last maybe more than 1 year. You're doing, I see you're on top of the building and you have yajnas set up for fire sacrifice. I mean, for people who don't know, we are not sacrificing anybody, but just putting some clarified butter, ghee, and we're chanting mantras. And it's very beautiful, very colorful. I know you do this for the benefit of the devotee worldwide.
Yeah.
So tell them how people can participate in this, because it's important for people to know, because many people don't know about this. Tell us a little bit.
Even just before that, if I can say a few words.
Sure.
My whole idea when I was in Gurukul was to do something. I was, I wanted to stay in Mayapur. I never wanted to leave. I wasn't very appealed with the fact that, okay, I learned all these things, all these beautiful skills and devotional life and temple,
job in the
and
factory.
then, I wanted to get married. Till I was 15, I was convinced I was going to be a full-time brahmachari, and then I was like, okay, maybe not.
Awakening time.
Yeah, I was like 16, I was like, nah. No,
but it's nice. You're honest and you follow the principle and everything.
Yeah, so the idea was to do it properly. But then I didn't really see the connection. I was like, okay, so I study here, I graduate, and then to make a living, I mean, it with all due respect, 10,000, 15,000 rupees, no place, no wife, no nothing, then maybe you can get something. But when you have a place to pay rent, and then, you have a wife, and then you have kids, and you need something to maintain yourself.
Absolutely.
And that wasn't really thought in the Gurukul.
No. Yeah, unfortunately. But you learn a lot of skills. So
yes. So I was doing some things because I was very business-minded at that point from the beginning. I did the shops. We were selling prasadam. I was running the Gurukul shop, and we were already doing some businesses all the time, buying things from all over India and then selling them. So I really liked that. I was business-minded, but I didn't want to go and just get a job. Well, I was like, okay, I go back to Israel. I have to go to the army to begin with for 3 years, and then get a job, and then just, there's no devotee association.
You won't survive.
I really didn't like that idea from the get-go. And so I was like thinking, I was really breaking my head, and I was like, how am I supposed to do all of this? And so the first idea that came to my mind when I was 17, and I went for a course by Sagar Maharaj. He was doing I don't even remember how it was called, or Artha or something. And I took that course, and he was like, you have to find an idea or something that you can do. And I was like thinking, what can I do? And then I remember that my father was doing tours. And at that point, I learned Bengali. I was on my way to learning Hindi. I learned something. I can speak to survive, but it's not very good.
Botacha.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, maybe I can take tours. I can do a few tours and spend the rest of the time and money living in Mayapur.
Sure.
And so that was my idea. And I graduated with that idea. No, I didn't graduate. 1 year before we graduated, we had to go out and then travel. And it was internship. So we did the internship. Right. And during the internship, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I arranged one tour even. And then COVID hit. And I was like, man, the only job that I
can do properly.
It was gone. It was just gone. And I was like, this is really sad. And so I started doing anything. I was like, okay, I started learning social media marketing. I was like, this is the new thing. So I got myself Instagram, Facebook. I was like, I'm technologically challenged to a certain degree. But I took 2, 3, 4 courses, paid, free. And then me and my friend, we started working, doing all those things. And then I got a job. I started working for Ganga Sima. I was working for Ganga Sima for a year. I was doing his website.
What is it called?
Silver Tulsi Mala.
Silver Tulsi Mala.
He was selling, and I was running his page and trying to do some things, and we're doing offers, and I learned how to do SEO and running a website. Because I really like learning, and I was like, no, I need to make money and stay here. So, trying to put it all together. I was living with my parents. I didn't have to spend much. I started making jam. I went to Calcutta. Because I pulled up all the contacts that I had from the Gurukul shop, which I was running. And then Gaur Purnima, I would sell anything to survive, from chaddars to food to anything else. And so I was making some money there, and I started making strawberry jam and selling it and doing so many other things.
Yeah, I remember you give me some, so it was very good.
Yeah, all the things that I learned, I started putting just not to leave. My idea was just somehow or other you have to stay here. Yeah. That was my idea. So then after 6 months or a year of doing that, I got an offer to work with a few friends here in Mayapur. They work with a company in the US. They make apps for sleeping and wellness, and I applied for that job, and I started doing it, and potentially it was really good. But also at that point, these people that someone suggested to someone about me that there was these devotees doing yajnas in Vrindavan. And I was like, doing yajnas?
Wow.
What are they doing? And so they called me.
You can make money out of this.
I was like, this is crazy. And so they called me and they were like, okay, can you come to Vrindavan? And I was like, yeah, sure. For what? And they were like, for doing yajnas. Actually, in the beginning, they didn't even tell me that. They were like, can you just come to Vrindavan? And I was like, for what? And they were like, just come. Can you come? We'll pay for everything. I was like, this sounds suspicious. And I said, this is too good to be true. And then I asked them when, and they were like, day after tomorrow. I was like, these people who I don't know calling me and telling me to come to Vrindavan day after tomorrow. It sounds a bit, no. This is a bit weird. So I said, no, give me some time. Give me a week. I mean, I am on the go, but I have some work. I have things to do. I promise people things. And so I was like, okay. Yeah. And then a month later, they called me and they were like, can you come to Vrindavan? And I was like, okay, when? They were like, tomorrow. I was like, guys, again.
You had to tell me before.
Just tell me a week. Can you tell me 5 days before? And then they were like, no. Okay. And then they left. And then...
But they were foreigner or Indian or what?
They were Russian. They're actually Russian. And then... So at that point, and then they called me back. No, they didn't call me back. I wanted to go. Now it was my turn. And so all my friends at this point in Mayapur, they wanted to go. It was July. There was some kirtaniyas coming to Vrindavan. And everybody's like, let's go to Vrindavan.
Kirtan
Or something was happening.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, so I have these guys who want to pay for my trip to Vrindavan. So I called them up and I was like, hey, I want to go to Vrindavan. You still want me? And they were like, yeah, but we're not going to Vrindavan. We're going to Manali. And I was like,
what?
Manali.
Manali is beautiful. But...
I was like, yeah, this is a really beautiful place, but Manali, out of all places, I was like, okay, whatever, let's go. At this point, I was ready to go anywhere. And so they sent me a ticket, and I was like, wow. They actually sent me, yeah. I was like, let's go. So, and then they were like, we'll pay for everything, guarantee. And I was like, no, you have to buy me tickets both ways. Because
you're going to leave me there in the mountain.
So, and then my dad was like, don't go if you don't have the second ticket. And then they were pushing me all the way to the last moment, till I was sitting in the car going to the airport. They were like, no, we'll buy it. And they didn't buy it. And then I was like, man, I was mental the whole way. I flew to Chandigarh, and Chandigarh supposed to take a flight to Manali.
Yes.
And then the flight got canceled. And I was like, oh, man. And so they put me on a car, 10-hour drive. And I was like, okay, whatever. They paid for everything. They had everything arranged. And I was like, okay, at least that. They were like, yeah, we'll give you some money. I was like, what? They're going to give me 2,000-3,000 rupees. So I was like, okay, well, I made it to Manali. And the whole time I'm asking them, what am I going to do there? Like, what's this job that you found me to do when I don't know anything? Literally, I can make you jam, but like, not more than that. And so... Anyway, I got there, and then they rented a whole building, and there were Brahmins on the top floor from North India. Then there were these guys who called me, and then there was a room for me. And I got there, and I was like, okay, so what am I doing here? Can you tell me? Can you explain to me? I've been traveling for 2 days, in contact with you for so long. Just tell me what I'm doing. They were like, oh, we do yajnas.
You told me before,
and I was like, why did you tell me? I was like, I don't know. And I was like, what kind of yajnas? And they were like, oh, we just do yajnas. And I was like, okay. They were like, come tomorrow and see it. And I was like, okay, this is going down somewhere that I don't want it to go. And then I went up the next morning, and then I saw, and I was like, okay, they are doing yajnas. And there was like 3 Brahmins from North India. And then, yeah, it's a profession. And I was like,
Purusha Shukta and stuff like that?
No, not quite. It was a bit on the Karma Kanda side.
Okay.
More like fully. But
yeah.
And so...
Like demigods.
Yeah, all demigod worship, Kali, Durga, Navagraha, all of that. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do these. And they were like, you know what's the best part about this? You don't have to know how to do these. We have Brahmins. And I was like, so what do you want me to do? And they were like, you just have to read the names. I was like, read the names.
Read the name of who?
Yeah, I was like, whose name you want me to read? And they were like, okay, listen here. And then they explained me the whole system. And I was like, whoa, now this is interesting. And so they were like, I was like, who do you do yajnas for? Yeah. What are you, manifesting it from the air? And so there was 3 Brahmins. There was a lady with a phone streaming it on Instagram. I think it was Instagram, yeah. And then so they were going and they were talking. They were explaining to me this whole...
In Russian?
Well, they're all Russian, yeah, except for the Brahmins. And so there was the main Hotri who pushed the ghee in, and he was white. He was Russian. He was one of the persons I was in contact with. And then he explained to me, he was like, okay, look, so we do this yajna on behalf of all these people who are sitting online, wherever they are, watching. And they give a donation. They get the benefits. So we read their name in the Sankalpa. And I was like, wow. This guy's a genius. Smart. This guy is a real genius. This is COVID. Everybody is sick. Everybody wants a yajna, especially Russians who are all into, all these things. So I was like, man, these guys are really, really, really smart. And they were like, okay, so all you have to do is just read their names and participate in the yajna. I was like, okay, what are you going to give me? They were like, we'll pay you. I was like, what are you going to pay? They're like, we'll pay you good. I was like, okay. And they actually did. They did pay me good, which was the most surprising part. For India, it was a lot of money. And so, yeah. And they were like, okay, so are you going to be part of us after 2 weeks? It was a 2 weeks trial in Manali. And I was like, the problem there was that I knew a lot about yajnas. And I learned their yajnas very fast. I could do them. But because it was karma kanda, there was a lot of karma involved. And I was like, I'm getting paid and I'm taking a lot of sinful reaction from all these people that are paying. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have any other opportunity. No one else is going to pay me. What should I do? I should rather do yajnas in India or in Vrindavan or stay in a holy place or go to the West and just work and make money. And I was like, okay, I'm going to choose India. And so we went to Vrindavan, and in Vrindavan, I was there with them for 4 months. And yeah, I was just doing that for a while, but it got really, really, really heavy. Because
heavy in which sense?
In the sense of like
you can feel the vibration.
Yeah, you could feel it all because it wasn't like one yajna every 2 weeks. It was 3 yajnas a day.
Wow.
It was 3 yajnas a day with from 500 to 1,000 people on each yajna. So yeah, well, you could tell that, but it was also a lot of karma.
Yeah, of course.
Because I was the main priest. I was taking a lot of their karma, and it was just bad. Luckily, my sadhana was strong, and I was like, I really need to keep it. I would wake up, chant 16 rounds, go for darshanarti, then come back. I would go eat something, then go to the gym, and then it was work. It was working day. They have a rickshaw, which would take me to the other side of Vrindavan. Every day, it was like a transport, and bring me there, and then bring me back at like 4 or 5 in the evening, and I would go evening program, chant another 16 rounds for all the yajnas that I did, and then, hang around and then come back. And yeah, after 4 months, I was just like, I was done with it.
Burnout.
I was really burnt out. At that point, my goal was, I had a financial goal, which I wanted by the end of the year. I was making that a month, and I was like, this is a bit much though. I can't do this. But I really liked the idea. I liked the idea of this person because I was like, this guy is a genius. Because you can actually get the benefit. Yeah. No one says you can't get the benefit. If you're listening to a lecture in Zoom or you're hearing the holy names, you're getting the benefit on the other side of the screen. It doesn't mean that you're not getting it. So it's a genius idea. Just the way they did it, I didn't like. And the way they monopolized it. So I was like, okay, how can I do this just the way I learned it in Gurukula? And I was like, okay.
Also, there's no karma involved. There's a devotional benefit.
Yes, there is I think there's an aspect of karma when you're taking people's money involved anyway, but it's very minute in comparison. So then,
to the benefit they get, because if you on the devotional aspect, you get a lot of punya, or you get a lot of Agyata Sukriti or devotional performance for them.
Exactly. So then, to the question that you actually asked, I took a long roundabout.
But it's an interesting story, yeah.
Yeah.
But you never suggest to them that to change the yajna and make it devotional or something? Because the foreign people, what do they know about mantra?
They don't know anything.
They don't know. So why not doing it in a proper way? Why they were doing through the priest of Karmakanda and all this?
They had a little different view. I'll not get into detail, but they were very they were serious about it. We even got, unfortunately, into some disagreements at some point.
Of course.
Especially after I left. Because, anyway, there was some problems.
They're still doing it that way.
Yeah, they're still doing it in that way. There's many other people actually doing it, and they started doing it. But I came back to Mayapur. I was after Kartik of 2020. No, 2021. Kartik of 2021, I came back, and then I was like, okay, maybe I should just do this in the way I learned in Gurukul, doing only Vishnu yagyas or Krishna or, what we follow.
Devotional.
Only offering to Krishna. And even if people want the 9 planets, you can connect them.
Sure.
There's 9 forms of Nrsimhadev that are involved in that. And there's the Dashavatar, which are involved with each planet. And then I was like, we can do the same thing.
But
just
devotional.
doing it 100% devotional, asking people for a donation. And then I'm sure they'll be interested. And so I just called up all my friends. I called the friends who I graduated with, 4 friends. I called them all because we all knew how to do yagyas.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll get some people. I'll gather a few people. I called Ganga Sima. I called another friend. I was like, you guys want to gather some devotees? Ask them for a donation. They can participate and watch this yagya online. Why not? And then, to my surprise, it really worked. There was more than 100 people watching online who participated in that first yagya. The first time I ever did it. And I was like, this is really interesting, and this can really work. And I was like, I don't have to go back there and take so much karma and do so many things, and just work under this person and be absolutely under him.
You are
so I was like, I'll build a little team that I have.
Yeah, nice.
I'll get people who can speak Russian, who can spread the word and market it, whatever you call it as you like, and then invite them. I'll explain to them what I'm doing. And then I have the Brahmins who can do it. And that's it. I covered both sides. And that's all. And I've been doing that for a year and developing. And we got a team of maybe 13 people. Then there's 2 Matajis who talk to people because it's quite personal. People like it when you reach out to them and you say, oh, look, we're doing this yagya for Nityananda Trayodashi, for example.
Yes.
And devotees, non-devotees, people who are into esoteric things, we make that palatable for them too. And then we tell them, look, you want to give a donation? You can give a donation. You don't want to give a donation, just participate, just watch it. You're getting punya and sukriti and bhakti sukriti and agyata sukriti just from watching it, because we start with Hare Krishna, we have Vedic mantras all the way, and then we end with the kirtan.
It's a win-win situation for everybody.
Exactly.
And you can make some Lakshmi.
Yes, and we're able to maintain all those 13 people in Mayapur.
That's wonderful.
That's
beautiful.
That was the idea, and it's working out very well.
There you are, successful story.
Yeah,
wonderful. Krishna gave you intelligence. Krishna said, I give you whatever you need and protect whatever you have. So it's amazing how Krishna gives intelligence for the devotee to, build well off. Okay, wonderful story. It's a success story. But now tell us about, you got married last month. What's your plan for the future? Now you are 2. You are not 1 anymore. You are 2. You are a beautiful wife. And so are you, you figured out how to maintain yourself. So enough Lakshmi, I guess?
Yeah,
yes. But what's your plan for the future? What's your vision, let's say? Because you are a leader by nature, so.
My idea is to a certain degree, travel and then preach.
Mm-hmm.
I learned actually Russian because I forgot it in Israel, and then not in Israel, in Gurukul. And then I learned it again, and now I'm learning how to speak and preach in Russian. My father is preaching in Israel, and he's doing his affiliation of the Bhaktivedanta Academy.
Beautiful.
So he's preaching. That's in terms of Krishna consciousness. And then I also, whatever service that I can do in the temple.
Sure.
I'm doing usually on festivals and other days. But the idea is to stay in Mayapur, try help and be part of the community.
Nice.
Have a good family, maybe get some land, build a house, just do something like that, and then preach. If I can preach online, if I can help devotees. I really like helping devotees who come for the first time, arranging things for them, getting a place to stay, helping them out. Many people reach out to me, especially now that we're doing the yagyas, and then people come, and then my father also, he's teaching. He has many, many people, and they also come and they reach out. Just, help devotees in Mayapur stay.
Wonderful.
And preach.
That's a nice service. That's a beautiful vision, and I wish you all success.
Thank you very, very much.
Would you like to, in the closure of this interview, would like to say something for the people who listen to this Radio Mayapur? You want to call them, welcome them, contact you? You have your phone number, or your you have a website for this yagya?
We don't have a website. We have a Telegram channel, but unfortunately, it's only for those who speak Russian. For those who speak English, they can contact me directly.
How they can contact?
They can contact me on WhatsApp or on Instagram. Or
would you like to say your number?
Yeah, sure. +91 758 4800 182. It's a WhatsApp number, Indian phone number, and then Telegram.
All right.
Yeah, they can contact me if they're interested in participating in the yagya or coming to Mayapur.
Thank you so much, Tamal, for coming
you.
today. For having this wonderful interview with you, and we like to, to hear more of this wonderful, inspiring story of youth, because the youth are the future of our movement. So you're going to be one of the leaders in Mayapur. We've been living in you for a long time, from when you're a kid, and you've been having this mentality to help people. So that's what will be pleasing to the Acharya and Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda and Krishna. So keep on doing that, and you'll be very successful. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hare Krishna.
It was wonderful.
Haribol. Haribol.
You're listening to Radio Mayapur with the best devotional, meditation, kirtan music, and inspirational podcast. This is Radio Mayapur.